The mission started long before the team even stepped into the jungle. Inside a dimly lit briefing room, a group of U.S. Navy SEALs sat around a large table, looking at a digital map glowing on the wall. The air was serious. No one was joking. No one was relaxed. Everyone knew this was not a normal mission. A captured American intelligence officer was being held deep inside a thick, dangerous jungle controlled by a brutal militia. The officer wasn't just anyone. He had top-secret information that could put thousands of lives at risk if the enemy forced it out of him. That meant the SEALs had only one option: rescue him and do it fast. The commander explained that this jungle was like no other. It wasn't just the enemy they had to worry about. There were no clear paths, no villages, no open fields. Everything was trees, shadows, thick vines, and danger. Drones couldn't see clearly through the leaves. Helicopters couldn't land. Even the satellite images looked like a green blur. The jungle itself was a weapon. The team leaned in when the commander said something that made everyone silent. The enemy was believed to have snipers hidden in the forest. Not ordinary gunmen, but trained shooters who could hit a target from far away without ever being seen. That meant every step the SEALs took might be watched. Every tree, every branch, every shadow could be hiding a rifle aimed at them. Still, the team didn't flinch. This was why they existed. Hard missions. Impossible missions. Missions no one else could do. The plan was simple but dangerous. They would enter before dawn, move in silence, no gunfire unless necessary, and reach the hut where the hostage was being kept. They would take him out and head toward a river where a small extraction boat would be waiting. No backup, no second chance. But something felt different this time. Usually, the SEALs had a full support system: drones, satellites, air cover. This time, it felt like they were walking into the unknown with very little help. The commander's final words stayed in everyone's mind. Once you're in, you're on your own. The team checked their weapons, night vision goggles, packs, emergency gear, and comms. Every man moved with quiet confidence. They had trained for years for situations like this: silent entries, jungle combat, hostage rescue. But even the most experienced ones could feel it. The jungle was unpredictable. And the enemy was waiting. The youngest member of the team, still new compared to the rest, finally asked the question everyone was thinking. What about those enemy snipers? Do we have our own counter-sniper support? The commander paused before answering. His voice was calm, but the truth was sharp. There is no confirmed friendly sniper in the area. If someone is shooting, it's not ours. That sentence changed the whole mood. It meant one thing. If gunfire started, they would have no idea whether it was coming from the enemy or someone else hidden in the trees. The lights dimmed, the briefing ended, and the team walked out in silence. Boots on the floor, rifles in hand, focused minds. There were no promises of a safe return. Only a mission, and the men trusted to complete it. Outside, the helicopter waited. The night was dark, the wind cold, the blades spinning loudly. One by one, the SEALs climbed in. They didn't talk. They didn't need to. They had a bond built through years of training and missions. They knew each other's strengths. They trusted each other's aim, judgment, silence, and instincts. The helicopter lifted into the air. Below them, the world turned black and green as night vision goggles came on. The closer they got to the jungle, the thicker it looked, like a giant wall of leaves and shadows swallowing the earth. The pilot's voice cut through the headset. 2 minutes to drop zone. No turning back. The team prepared to jump into darkness. None of them knew what they were about to find. None of them knew who was already waiting inside the forest. And none of them knew that a single hidden sniper, someone no one had been told about, would change the entire mission before they even reached the target. But that part they would not discover until later. For now, all they knew was this: a man needed saving. A jungle full of enemies stood in the way. And somewhere out there, someone was already watching. Silent, patient, and deadly. The moment the SEAL team entered the jungle, everything changed. The air felt heavier, the light dimmer, and every sound seemed louder than it should be. Branches snapped under their boots, insects buzzed, and distant animal calls echoed in the dark. But the men moved like shadows, silent and focused, following the path marked only on their maps and in their minds. They had been walking for hours, slowly and carefully, when the first strange thing happened. A sudden gunshot cracked through the air, sharp, clean, and distant. The team instantly dropped low, rifles up, eyes searching the trees. But there was no enemy in sight. No movement. No one running. No muzzle flash. Nothing. Then it happened again. Another shot. Then another. But these bullets were not hitting the SEALs. They were hitting someone else. One of the men put his night vision scope toward the sound, and that's when they saw it. 3 enemy guards lying on the ground, dead. Each shot was perfect. Head, chest, neck. Not a single miss. But the question that froze every SEAL was simple. Who fired those shots? It wasn't them. Nobody on the team had pulled the trigger. No one had permission to fire yet. Their orders were to stay hidden, avoid conflict, and reach the hostage first. So if it wasn't the SEALs, then who was it? The team leader signaled everyone to hold position. The radio stayed silent. No one spoke. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Is this an enemy sniper? Or is someone helping us? But it didn't make sense. Enemy snipers wouldn't kill their own guards. And if it was an American sniper, why wasn't he on the mission list? Why didn't command tell them? The military didn't just forget to mention a sniper. One of the SEALs whispered, "We have unseen eyes on us." And that made the jungle feel even more alive, almost like it was breathing around them. They moved forward again, slower this time. Every leaf, every branch, every shadow looked like it could be hiding someone with a rifle. They didn't know if the mystery shooter was a friend or a threat, but one thing was clear. Whoever it was, they were very, very skilled. Then came the 4th shot. This one was closer. So close that the leaves above them shook from the sound. Another enemy guard dropped. The man didn't even have time to scream. Just 1 shot, 1 kill. Clean. Professional. Silent reload. The SEALs exchanged looks. Someone was picking off the enemy one by one, like a ghost hiding in the trees. The youngest SEAL finally whispered the question that had been in everyone's mind. Who's taking the shots? No one answered. Not the team leader. Not command. Not even the jungle. The SEALs watched the treetops, but still no movement. The shooter wasn't visible. He wasn't making mistakes. He wasn't leaving clues. It was like he was part of the jungle itself, blending in, unseen, deadly. The enemy soldiers started to panic. They didn't know where the bullets were coming from either. They shouted in fear, fired randomly into the trees, wasting bullets, firing at shadows. The SEALs stayed low, quietly watching the chaos. Whoever the sniper was, he wasn't shooting at the SEALs. He was clearing the way for them. But why? That question followed them like a ghost as they continued deeper into the jungle. Minutes later, they found the first body up close. The dead enemy soldier had a hole straight through his forehead. No burn marks. No mess. Perfect sniper shot. The angle was high, meaning the shooter was positioned somewhere up in the trees earlier. That meant one thing. The sniper wasn't just skilled, he was fearless. Climbing into trees, staying still for hours, blending into nature, shooting without being seen. Only elite-level snipers could do that. And even they couldn't do it this perfectly. The team leader came to a silent conclusion. This is not a normal sniper. This is someone who has been here a long time. Someone who knows this jungle better than we do. The team moved again, but now the jungle didn't just feel dangerous. It felt like someone else controlled it. Someone who saw them before they saw him. Someone who chose when to shoot and when to stay silent. The SEALs were trained to control the battlefield. But here, in this jungle, they were not in control. They were being watched. They were being protected. Or maybe, they were being tested. And none of them knew which one was true. The deeper they went, the more they understood. The jungle wasn't empty. It had a guardian. A ghost with a rifle. A sniper so silent, so precise, he didn't need a team, a radio, or a command order to kill. The SEALs had just entered his territory. And whatever came next, good or bad, was already in his sights. As the SEAL team continued deeper into the jungle, the silence began to feel heavier than the air itself. No birds, no insects, no wind, just quiet. The kind of quiet that makes a trained soldier feel like something is watching. And this time, they knew it wasn't imagination. Someone was watching. Someone with a rifle. Someone who never missed. They didn't talk. They only communicated with hand signals. Eyes scanning. Boots stepping carefully. Hearts controlled. Breathing steady. But inside every man, one thought was growing stronger. Who is the sniper? The kills they had seen were not normal. No panic, no wasted bullets, no hesitation. Every shot was like a message. A warning. A sign. The enemy guards were dropping in perfect order, as if the sniper knew exactly which ones to kill first, where they stood and what they were about to do. That kind of skill wasn't common. That kind of patience wasn't common. That kind of, was almost superhuman. The team leader finally gave the order to stop. They crouched behind a fallen tree, gathering quietly. Their mission was to rescue the hostage, not to solve mysteries, but now the mission had changed. There was another force in the jungle. Someone they needed to understand. The radio operator tried again. Command, be advised, unknown friendly or hostile shooter in AO. Requesting confirmation. But Command replied with confusion. No shooters listed in support. Repeat, none. You are alone in that area. The SEALs looked at each other. If it wasn't US military support, then who was it? They continued moving, but now every step felt like stepping into a story they didn't know the ending of. The sniper wasn't shooting at them, but that didn't mean he was a friend. He could just be using them to kill his enemy. He could betray them at any moment. Or worse, he could be studying them. The youngest SEAL whispered what no one else wanted to say. What if he's hunting everyone, including us? But before anyone could respond, another shot. Not far this time. Maybe 200 meters away. Another enemy soldier fell. The SEALs scanned the treeline again. Nothing. Not a single leaf moved. Whoever it was, he was so hidden that even trained special forces couldn't spot him. That was not normal. That was elite. The enemy soldiers panicked harder now. Some tried to run. Others fired like mad into the darkness, shooting at trees, vines, shadows. They had no idea where death was coming from. And the sniper? He didn't waste bullets. He didn't shoot to scare. He only shot to kill. One bullet. One body. Silence again. The SEAL team reached a high ridge and paused. The sniper's shots were clearing the exact same route they were taking. As if he knew where their mission was headed. As if he wanted them to reach the hostage. But why? The team leader began trying to piece it together. Maybe he was a local. Maybe he was a mercenary. Maybe he hated the militia. Or maybe, just maybe, he wasn't a stranger at all. Maybe he used to be part of a unit like theirs. A ghost soldier. A forgotten warrior. A man left behind. The longer they walked, the more the jungle felt like it belonged to someone else. Not the enemy, not the SEALs, but the sniper. His jungle. His rules. His war. Then something happened that made every man's heart stop. A single bullet landed in a tree. Not a kill shot. Not aimed at them. It was a warning shot. A message. A signal. The sniper was communicating. The SEAL leader raised his hand. They all froze. Then they saw it. Scratched into the tree, right where the bullet hit, were 3 lines like a mark left with a knife. Not random. Not natural. A symbol. A sign. Someone wanted them to notice it. It was almost as if the sniper was saying, "I'm here. I see you. Keep moving." The SEALs now knew something clearly. They were not walking alone. Someone else was part of this mission. Someone who didn't need orders, backup, or permission. Someone who lived in silence and dealt death with a calm hand. But one question still burned in every soldier's mind. Is he with us, or just waiting for the right moment to reveal himself? The mystery wasn't just about bullets now. It was about identity. The ghost sniper wasn't just a shooter. He was a story, a legend they had just entered. And soon, they were going to meet him. Because eventually, every ghost steps out of the shadows. And this one was getting closer. The deeper the SEAL team moved into the jungle, the more they realized something important. The enemy wasn't scared of them. They were terrified of the sniper they couldn't see. The militia soldiers, who were usually loud and confident, were now shaking, hiding behind trees, whispering to each other, and firing blindly into the shadows. They were fighting fear more than they were fighting the seals. The jungle no longer felt like a battlefield with two sides. It felt like a place controlled by one invisible man with a rifle. The seals didn't know his name, his face, or his purpose, but they could feel his presence with every silent shot. They stopped on a small slope to observe the enemy camp from a distance. Through night vision, they could see guards moving nervously, switching positions and staring into the trees. They knew death could strike any of them at any moment. It was like the jungle itself had turned against them. One seal whispered, "They're not watching for us. They're watching for him." That was the truth. The enemy had no idea the seals were even there. Their biggest fear was the ghost in the treetops. Suddenly, crack. Another shot. A guard near the camp tower dropped. No scream. No warning. Just a lifeless fall. The enemy went wild again, shooting in circles, shouting in fear, some even running deeper into the jungle, hoping to escape a killer they couldn't find. But the seals noticed something interesting. The sniper wasn't firing randomly. Every shot had a pattern. Every kill seemed to push the enemy in a specific direction, like he was controlling their movements, forcing them to leave one side of the jungle unguarded. The side the seals needed to pass through. That changed everything. The sniper wasn't just helping them. He was guiding them. But that raised a bigger question. Why? Was he trying to help them complete the mission? Or was he leading them into something he wanted them to see? The team leader made a decision. No more waiting. They would move fast while the enemy was distracted. The sniper had opened a path, and they didn't know how long it would stay open. They moved quietly through the trees, using the chaos to slip past the camp. Every now and then, another shot echoed through the jungle, always one bullet, always one body. No wasted ammo, no warning bursts, pure accuracy. But the silence between shots was the real danger. It was in those moments that every man wondered, where is he now? Is he watching us? Does he even know we're here? Or does he know exactly where we are? They approached a small clearing, and that's when everything changed again. Something fell from the trees. A body. An enemy soldier, already dead, shot through the heart, dropped right in front of them. Not by accident. Not by chance. As if the sniper had placed him there to send a message. The silent message was clear. I am close. Some seals gripped their rifles tighter. Some tried to stay calm. And one of them whispered what everyone was thinking. He's not just killing them. He's showing us he's in control. The team leader scanned the trees, but saw nothing. No flash, no movement, no shape. The jungle looked empty, but they all knew it wasn't. The sniper was somewhere above them, watching, judging, waiting, maybe for them to prove something, maybe for the right moment to step into the story. Then suddenly, the radio crackled, not from command, but from somewhere close. A single voice, calm, low, unshaken. Keep moving. Don't stop. The seals froze. That wasn't one of their voices. That wasn't command. That was him. The ghost had spoken. He wasn't just a silent killer anymore. He was now part of the mission. He knew they were there. He knew where they were going. And he wanted them to keep going. The team finally understood something important. They weren't in the jungle alone. They were in someone else's battlefield. Someone who had already turned the enemy into prey. Someone who didn't fight with teams or radios or support. Someone who hunted alone. And now, for the first time, he had spoken. The question wasn't just who is he. The new question was, why is he helping them? And the next part of the mission would bring that answer closer, bullet by bullet. The mission was now moving faster than planned. The SEAL team knew they had to reach the captured officer before the enemy regrouped. The mysterious sniper had created the perfect opening, but no one knew how long that advantage would last. The jungle was still full of danger, and every second could change everything. The SEALs reached the edge of the enemy camp where the hostage was being held. From a distance, they could see a small wooden hut surrounded by guards. But something was different now. There were fewer guards than expected. Some had already been killed by the sniper, and others had abandoned their posts out of fear. The sniper had done more damage to the enemy than a full assault team could have in the same time. The team leader raised his hand. It was time. 2 SEALs moved forward, crawling through the grass, getting closer to the hut. Another pair positioned themselves near the back to block any escape route. The sniper hadn't fired for a while, and the silence felt sharp, like the jungle was holding its breath. Then it happened. Just as one of the guards turned toward the hut entrance to shout something, crack. Another shot. The guard fell instantly. The SEALs didn't do it. It was him again. The ghost sniper was still watching, still protecting, still controlling the battle without being seen. But this shot was different. It wasn't just killing, it was timing. It was clear now. The sniper wasn't just fighting the enemy, he was working with the SEALs without ever standing beside them. The moment the guard dropped, the team made their move. They rushed the hut silently, broke the lock, and found the hostage tied to a chair. Weak, bruised, dehydrated, but alive. The SEAL medic checked him quickly. He's stable. We can move. But there was a problem. The enemy had heard the commotion. Shouts echoed in the jungle. More guards were running toward the hut. The mission wasn't over yet. They had the hostage, but now they had to escape. That's when the sniper began firing again. Not slowly this time. Not one bullet at a time. Crack, crack, crack. 3 shots in 3 seconds. 3 enemies down before they even understood what was happening. The SEALs carried the hostage and began their retreat toward the extraction point. But the enemy wasn't giving up. More men were coming from deeper in the jungle. They were angry, scared, and firing blindly in all directions. The SEALs moved fast, but the weight of the hostage slowed them down. They could hear bullets snapping through branches above their heads. The jungle was now full of shouting, gunfire, footsteps, panic, and still, the sniper never missed. Every time an enemy soldier got too close, crack, he dropped. Every time someone tried to flank the SEALs, crack, another body hit the ground. It was like having an invisible guardian, a deadly shadow, a silent partner. Finally, they reached the river, the extraction point. The boat was already waiting, engine low, ready to move. The SEALs got the hostage inside first, then formed a defensive circle. But the enemy was closing in. They could hear voices getting louder, branches breaking, weapons loading. That's when the SEAL leader made a decision. Cover fire now. Move to the boat. The team fired in controlled bursts, keeping the enemy back just long enough to load everyone aboard. But one SEAL was still at the riverbank, covering the final angle. Suddenly, the enemy spotted him. 3 rifles aimed at him, and he didn't have time to duck. But before any of them could shoot, crack, 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 3 shots, 3 perfect kills, all from the sniper. The last SEAL jumped onto the boat and they sped down the river, leaving the jungle behind them. The mission was complete. The hostage was alive. The team survived. But nobody cheered. Nobody smiled. Nobody forgot what just happened. They didn't do it alone. They never saw the sniper. He never asked for help. He never asked for thanks. He just stayed hidden and deadly. One SEAL finally said what everyone was thinking. We didn't rescue him alone. Someone else was fighting a whole war in there. The team leader only nodded. They all knew. The jungle had a ghost. A sniper no one ordered. A man no one briefed. A silent warrior who saved lives in the shadows. But now, one question was bigger than ever. Who was he? And why was he fighting alone? The answer was waiting, somewhere in the trees. The riverboat cut through the dark water, leaving the jungle behind, but the SEAL team wasn't celebrating. They had succeeded, yes, but the mission didn't feel complete. There was a mystery still unsolved, a question still hanging in every soldier's mind. Who was the sniper? The man who never showed himself. The man who saved their lives more than once. The man who killed with calm, perfect shots, but never spoke, never stepped out, never asked for credit. The The SEALs reached the extraction point where a helicopter was already waiting to take them back to base. Medics rushed to take the rescued officer. The team climbed out, tired, sweaty, sore, but still alert. Even outside the jungle, they couldn't relax. Because something was wrong. Something was missing. Someone was missing. And then, as the helicopter blades began spinning, the radio crackled again. Same calm voice. Same quiet tone. Mission complete. You're clear. No name. No rank. No location. Just a voice. The SEAL leader froze. He grabbed the radio and spoke. Identify yourself. Who are you? Are you friendly forces? Are you military? Silence. Then 5 words. You'll see me soon enough. The radio went dead. Everyone looked at each other. The sniper wasn't gone. He was still nearby. Still watching. Still choosing when to step in. The SEALs didn't know whether to feel grateful or uneasy. But hours later, when they returned to the forward base, everything changed. They were unloading gear when a soldier at the gate raised his weapon and shouted. Movement. 200 meters out. Single figure. The SEALs turned fast, rifles up, eyes searching. And then, a man stepped out of the tree-line. Slowly, calmly, wearing a full ghillie suit covered in leaves, moss, dirt, and jungle colors. His rifle was slung over his shoulder. His face was covered with camo paint. He walked like someone who had spent weeks, maybe months, surviving alone. The SEALs aimed their rifles at him, instinct, not hatred. But the man didn't flinch. He simply raised one hand and stopped. Then, in a low voice, he said, Stand down. I'm done. The team leader approached him, eyes sharp but controlled. You the one who's been taking the shots? The man nodded once. That was all. He didn't brag. He didn't explain. He didn't act like a hero. He acted like someone who had already seen too much. The team circled him slowly. His gear wasn't standard issue. His clothing was old and worn. His boots were damaged. His rifle had scratches and dirt on it, but it was cared for like a part of his body. This man wasn't just a sniper. He was a survivor. He was a ghost. The SEAL medic stepped closer, noticing scars on his hands and arms. Old burns, bullet marks, knife wounds. Whoever he was, he had lived through things most soldiers never did. The team leader finally asked the question everyone was waiting for. Name. Unit. Who are you? The man looked up. His eyes were calm, tired, but sharp like a blade that never went dull. Then he spoke 7 words. Former Marine Scout Sniper. Kia on paper. The SEALs froze. Kia meant killed in action. Dead. Officially dead. Which meant this man wasn't supposed to be alive. He had been left behind. Declared gone. Forgotten. But he didn't die. He stayed in the jungle. He hunted the enemy. He fought a one-man war. He never called for rescue. He just kept going. The SEALs were speechless. The leader finally said, almost in disbelief, You survived out there alone? The sniper nodded again. Long enough to become the problem they feared. That sentence said everything. He wasn't fighting for medals or orders or recognition. He was fighting because he refused to quit. Because he refused to die. Because someone had to keep killing the enemy before they killed more Americans. The SEAL team lowered their weapons. Not out of trust, but out of respect. This wasn't a stranger anymore. This was a legend. A soldier who didn't just survive the jungle. He owned it. He ruled it. And now, he had stepped out of it. Not to take credit. Not to join a mission. But simply because his unfinished war was finally over. But the real story, why he stayed, how he lived alone, what happened to his unit, why he didn't return sooner, that was still untold. And the next part of the story would reveal it. The SEALs still couldn't believe what they were seeing. The man standing in front of them had been officially declared dead months ago. The papers had said Kia killed in action. Families had mourned, comrades had grieved, and yet here he was, alive, standing calmly as if the jungle itself had been his only companion all this time. The former Marine Scout sniper looked around at the faces filled with awe and disbelief. His eyes were sharp, but there was a quiet sadness behind them. He had survived in ways no one could imagine. Every day in that jungle had been a battle against hunger, disease, the elements, and the constant threat of enemy patrols. But he had kept moving, kept surviving, and most importantly, kept fighting. He began to tell them how it had happened. On the mission that went wrong, his unit had been ambushed deep in hostile territory. The firefight had been intense, chaotic, and deadly. He had been shot, left for dead, and the enemy had taken over the area. His comrades had been killed or captured, and the official report had listed him among the fallen. No one had expected him to live, but live he did. At first, it had been sheer survival, finding food in the jungle, creating shelter from branches and leaves, avoiding enemy patrols, moving silently through dense undergrowth. The jungle became his ally, the trees his shields, the rivers his lifeline. Every animal, every sound, every shadow taught him lessons he never could have learned in training. Over time, survival became purpose. He started tracking the enemy. He observed them from the treetops, learning their routines, their weaknesses, their fears. And then, when he had enough knowledge, he began to strike. Quietly, efficiently, deadly. No one could see him. No one could stop him. Every shot he fired had a reason. Taking out the strongest threats, clearing paths, protecting anyone who might come into the jungle, and sending a message to the enemy. This territory was his. He had been fighting alone, yes, but he wasn't just fighting to survive. He was fighting for justice, for those left behind, and for the lives of anyone who might step into this hostile land after him. The SEALs listened in silence, stunned by the courage, patience, and skill this man had shown. Every detail sounded like a story from a legend, yet it was real. Every struggle, every shot, every hidden movement had happened. When asked why he hadn't returned earlier, he shook his head and explained. Extraction was impossible. The enemy controlled every path. Rescue teams had been sent but had failed or been turned back. He knew that if he tried to come out too soon, he would be killed or worse, captured again. So he waited, surviving day by day, silently dismantling the enemy's strength, waiting for the right moment to make a real difference. He had become a ghost, not because he wanted glory, but because the jungle had demanded it. And in that time he had perfected his skill. Every shot had purpose, every step had caution, every decision had logic. The sniper wasn't reckless. He was patient, observant, and deadly, and he had used that patience to save lives without anyone knowing. The SEALs realized they had been witnesses to something extraordinary. They had been in danger, yet the same danger had been neutralized by this lone man who had never asked for recognition. The former sniper had operated outside the rules, outside the reports, outside the world's knowledge, but his actions had directly ensured the success of their mission. One of the SEALs finally asked the question that had been on everyone's mind. Why help us? You didn't have to. The sniper paused. He looked toward the dense trees that had been his home for months, his eyes distant for a moment, remembering the endless nights, the danger, and the silence. Then he said softly, because it was the right thing to do. Someone had to fight. Someone had to stop them. If not me, then who? That answer silenced the team. They realized that true heroism wasn't about medals or recognition. It was about doing what needed to be done, even if no one knew, even if no one would ever believe it, even if it meant facing unimaginable danger alone. The SEAL leader stepped closer, nodding with respect. You saved lives we didn't even know were in danger. You changed everything in that jungle. Nobody else could have done what you did. The former sniper smiled faintly. He wasn't proud. He didn't need to be. To him, the mission, the survival, and the protection of others were enough. Yet, the SEALs couldn't stop themselves from feeling awe. Here was a man who had taken on a war by himself, moving unseen, striking fear into the enemy, and quietly becoming a guardian that even seasoned operators had relied on without realizing it. As the team finally prepared to leave the base, the sniper stood a little apart, his presence commanding respect without a word. He had completed his mission, yet he had no desire for fame or recognition. His story, while incredible, remained almost secret, known fully only to those who had witnessed its results firsthand. The SEALs had come expecting a normal mission, but what they experienced was extraordinary. They had faced the unknown, but the unknown had been not a threat, but a protector. A man who had survived what everyone thought was impossible, who had mastered the jungle, who had become a legend without anyone knowing. And now, as the team reflected on what they had witnessed, one thought stayed with them. Sometimes heroes aren't seen. Sometimes heroes don't ask for thanks. Sometimes heroes live in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to change everything. This man, this former Marine Scout sniper, was exactly that. He had been declared dead, forgotten by the world, and yet he had emerged not just alive, but victorious, having quietly ensured the mission's success, having saved lives, and having struck fear into an enemy that thought they controlled the jungle. And in that moment, every SEAL understood. Legends aren't made by medals or ceremonies. They're made in silence, in courage, and in action, just like the sniper who had stepped from the jungle and changed everything. The mission was finally over, but for the SEALs, the story wasn't finished yet. They had rescued the hostage, escaped the jungle, and returned to the base safely. But one presence hung over everything. The sniper. The man who had saved their lives, who had struck down the enemy with impossible precision, and who had remained a ghost until now. No one could stop thinking about him. The former Marine Scout sniper stood apart from everyone else. He didn't speak unless spoken to, and even then, his answers were short, calm, and full of quiet confidence. He had been through months alone in the jungle, surviving against impossible odds, and yet he carried himself with the ease of someone who had already seen death, danger, and despair, and had overcome them all. The SEALs watched as he inspected the base, noting small details they didn't even think about. The security positions, the patrol patterns, and even the gaps in the fences. He didn't need orders. His mind worked like a precision instrument, honed by months of living alone in enemy territory. The jungle had trained him, and now that same sharp awareness seemed to flow naturally, even in the relative safety of the base. Finally, the team leader stepped forward. "We need to know everything," he said. "How did you survive? How did you manage all this on your own? And why help us?" The sniper's gaze softened slightly, and for the first time, he allowed himself a small smile. "I survived because I had no choice," he said. "I helped because it was the right thing to do. Someone had to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. If it wasn't me, who would?" The words struck the SEALs. It wasn't just about skill, bullets, or strategy. It was about courage. Pure courage. He had fought not for recognition, not for medals, and not for orders. He had fought because he had a purpose, and that purpose had guided every decision he made in the jungle. Every step, every shot, every moment of danger. Later, as the base quieted down, the sniper began to share small details of his time in the jungle. How he had built makeshift shelters from branches and leaves. How he had found food, avoiding both enemy patrols and dangerous animals. How he had studied enemy movements, memorized routines, and calculated every shot he fired. He told them how he had taken down the strongest, most dangerous soldiers first, not recklessly, but with precision, patience, and strategy. Every action was planned, every move deliberate. The SEALs listened, stunned. They had trained for years, seen some of the most dangerous missions, and faced threats most people couldn't imagine. Yet this man had faced all of it alone, and had done it better than anyone could expect. It wasn't just bravery. It was skill, intelligence, patience, and above all, resilience. When asked if he had thought about coming back sooner, he shook his head. Extraction was impossible at first. If I tried, I would have been killed or captured again. I had to wait, survive, and strike when it mattered. My mission wasn't over until the enemy threat was reduced. Until now. The SEALs realized they had been protected by someone who had turned a jungle full of danger into a controlled battlefield, all from the shadows. He had acted alone, unseen, and yet his actions had changed the entire course of the mission. Without him, the SEALs might not have survived, the hostage might have been lost, and the enemy might have regrouped stronger than ever. Finally, the commander arrived at the base. Reports had come in about a lone sniper who had taken out the enemy with deadly efficiency, but no one knew the full story. When he saw the man standing calmly, the truth hit him. The stories were real. The ghost sniper had survived, fought, and saved lives, all without recognition. The SEALs began to understand a larger lesson. Real heroism wasn't about who received medals, who was recorded in reports, or who had the highest rank. Real heroism was about action, courage, and dedication, even when no one would ever know. The sniper had embodied all of it. In the following days, his story spread quietly among special forces and military units. He wasn't seeking fame, but the legend grew naturally. A ghost in the jungle who had taken down the enemy with skill and precision, who had survived impossible odds, and who had emerged only when the mission was complete. Soldiers whispered his name with awe and respect. Even at the base, he didn't ask for recognition. He trained quietly, repaired his gear, and prepared for whatever came next. For him, it wasn't about awards or titles. It was about readiness, survival, and being the silent force that protected others, even when no one knew. For the SEALs, the experience changed them. They had trained their whole lives for tough missions, but now they had seen something extraordinary. A man who had fought, survived, and protected others in absolute solitude. Someone who had made a difference without asking for anything in return. The jungle had created a legend, and they had witnessed it firsthand. As the sun set over the base, the sniper stood on a small hill, looking toward the horizon. The mission was over. The hostage was safe. The enemy had been weakened, and yet, he remained calm, quiet, and ready. His presence reminded everyone that some heroes don't seek glory. Some heroes live and fight in the shadows. Some heroes only emerge when the moment demands it. The SEALs would never forget him. The jungle would never forget him. And the story of the ghost sniper, declared dead, left behind, surviving alone, and stepping out of the shadows only when his mission was complete, would live on as a testament to courage, skill, and unwavering dedication. And for anyone who heard the story later, one truth was clear. Legends aren't always visible. Some fight in silence. Some wait in the shadows. Some step out of the trees only when the world truly needs them. This was the story of one such legend.